Hello and welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you could join us for today's webinar, Simplify Your 2025 Year-End Tax Processing. I'm Haley, and I'm part of the marketing team here at MHC. I'll be facilitating today's discussion with our speaker, Kyle Hartung, who I'll introduce shortly. But first, I'd like to go over several housekeeping items quickly. This webinar is being recorded, and attendees will receive a follow-up email with the link to the recording. All participants have been muted to prevent background noise, so if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A section. There will also be a post-webinar survey that will appear when the webinar ends. Please use the survey to let us know how we're doing. We really appreciate your feedback on these webinars. Our speaker for today is Kyle Hartung, Senior Account Executive at MHC. Kyle has 20 plus years of experience helping businesses achieve their procure-to-pay and payroll goals, and he's dedicated his career to helping businesses with their digital transformation. So with that, let's hear from Kyle about 2025 year-end tax processing.
Thank you, Haley. Appreciate the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Haley mentioned, I'm Kyle Hartung, a Senior Account Executive here with MHC. Look forward to spending the next 45 minutes or so with you all. As Haley mentioned, really the purpose of today's webinar is to help you all prepare for your 2025 year-end tax document processing with MHC. Before we get into that specific content for today, just wanted to provide a little bit of background around MHC, who we are, what we do, for those of you that may be new to working with MHC or are not familiar with us. We essentially, for the last 20 plus years, probably more like 25 years, have been digitizing and automating documents and communications. We have roughly 1,300 or so customers that are using our applications, over 100 system integrations, and then probably most importantly, 70% of our customers have been using our software for 5+ years. So I know a lot of you are customers, long-term customers, appreciate our fiercely loyal customer base. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a few badges from G2. For those of you that are not familiar with G2, it's a technology space that you can go and really look at how your peers are ranking different software vendors. And if you're ever in the market for a new solution, it's a good place to go and might help you evaluate some different vendors, see what your peers are saying about different solutions. And if you're not familiar with it, I would strongly recommend that you go and check it out. We've been consistently recognized as a leader in the document automation space for a number of years, and would recommend go checking it out if you're not familiar with it or aren't using it today. As far as MHC goes, as I mentioned, for the last 20+ years, we've been helping organizations with their documents and data and their communications. As you can see in the middle of the screen here, we have three different buckets of what we call product offerings. MHC NorthStar is our cloud-native multi-tenant SaaS platform. MHC Classic is our original Document Express and Document Self-Service solutions that really are being phased out and moving to more of a maintenance-only mode for our customers. And then we have our MHC NorthStar CCM, which is our customer communication management platform that is really used to generate documents and distribute them through multiple channels to customers. On the right-hand side here, you'll see the primary use cases, AP invoice, AP payment automation, something we're very well known for, supply chain document management automation, employee documents, which we'll certainly get into today with the document self-service for the tax documents, and then also some check and document distribution services as well. For those of you that are not familiar with the MHC NorthStar platform, this is our next-gen multi-tenant cloud platform that we have a lot of customers using already. For those of you that are not familiar with it, maybe using our classic products, if you're interested in learning more about it, it's really the direction that MHC is going. 20 years or so ago, we were an on-premise, thick client software company, where now we're a cloud company. And so if you're still using some of those thick client software applications from MHC, let us know. We're happy to help you evaluate our future and our future platform, which is a much more modern user experience. What we're looking at here are just some of the different use cases. I'm not going to go through all of them, but On the customer side, the vendor side, and the employee side, we have, solutions for many different departments and use cases, as you can see on the screen here. We're going to get into quite a few of these for the tax documents. And one last thing before we get into the year-end tax document processing solutions from MHC. I know we have some folks on the line here today from accounts payable, and really kind of a newer partnership that MHC has recently engaged in, and it's a pretty exciting offering for our customers. And really what it's all about. It's called MHC NorthStar Payments Plus, and it really helps our customers monetize their AP spend. What it essentially means is our customers now have access to the largest B2B payments network in the United States. And so what that means for your organization is, you could be taking advantage of some additional rebates that might be available for your organization through your AP spend. And so what a lot of organizations have today are, virtual card and different payment monetization programs. However, there likely are additional rebates available that you're not taking advantage of. Just one specific example, I personally worked with a healthcare customer of mine on the East Coast, and they already had 2 virtual card programs in place. They evaluated our solution. They're moving forward with it, and essentially what we're looking at for additional rebates for them is over $700,000 annually. So they're a larger healthcare organization, so they're not you're not all going to be able to see those types of rebates, but we're seeing 100,000, 200,000 annually in additional revenue that you could be taking advantage of. So if you're interested, that's not the point for the webinar today, but if you're interested, let us know in that post webinar survey, and then we're happy to help you evaluate that. All right, let's get into the content for today. So this is the topics that we're going to cover. We're going to go through our general updates for 2025. Then, what we've determined is a lot of our customers fall into 4 different categories for tax document processing, and so we'll cover those. And I think that will cover most of you and what you're using MHC for here coming up in the next month or two, and what you can plan for now and be ready for when the time comes to process those tax documents. So we'll get into those 4 scenarios. Then we'll get into some timelines and frequently asked questions. And as Haley mentioned, feel free to type those questions into the Q&A section. We'll review those at the end. I'm going to get through the content. Hopefully that'll answer a lot of the questions that you guys may have, but feel free to type those in, and then I'll give some folks some time at the end to ask additional questions as well. All right, so general updates for 2025. One piece that I wasn't aware of until just recently that our tax team called out to me is there is a new alternative manner to furnish statements for your 1095-Cs. And so hopefully you all that are in the benefits area are familiar with this, but essentially you have your paper filing deadline, your electronic filing deadline. No real surprise there. Last year, the IRS required filing for if you have 10 or more returns, you need to electronically file, so that's not new. What is new is this alternative manner of furnishing statements for your 1095-Cs. So if you read that, this came from the IRS. So employers are no longer have to automatically send those forms to individuals, and the requirement for furnishing the statement is met if the employer responsible for providing the statement provides a clear, conspicuous, and accessible notice on your website that the individuals may request a copy of their statement, and the copy is timely furnished. And so really what this means, and I should also call out that it does not apply for states with individual health insurance mandates: California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Rhode Island, and Washington, D.C. So, what this means is we always recommend that you check with your legal tax, your legal internal counsel to make sure, they agree with however you're planning to handle these documents. But, essentially the way that we're interpreting this is that you need to be able to, on demand, generate these documents for the employees. So you may not have to provide them right away, but if someone asks for a document, you need to be able to provide it on demand within 30 days. And so what we're recommending a lot of our customers do is, we have a self-service platform that you can, publish these documents all electronically through our NorthStar document self-service. That way that they're going to be available and accessible. So anybody that does request the document on demand, you just send them to the website. There's a single sign-on option, and then you don't have to worry about providing those on demand due to those requests. So keep that in mind if you're trying to figure out how to interpret that new requirement. Again, talk with your legal counsel. We don't provide legal tax advice, but we do have a solution that can help you get those documents delivered and available to the employees. So we also have that same platform handles W-2s, pay stubs, total comp statements, other employee documents, and is fully integrated with your ERP. So keep that in mind as well. All right. So as far as the IRS guidelines for 2025, February 2nd is January 31st falls on a Saturday this year. So a lot of you probably have figured that out. So W-2s need to be furnished to the employee. So you get till Monday the 2nd of February in this case, or for this year. And then the 1099s must be furnished to the payees, and the IRS electronic or paper filing is due for the W-2s and the 1099 NECs. On the left-hand side here, you'll see there's some IRS compliance for electronic delivery of W-2s, 1095-Cs. The employees need to provide consent through the way that they receive the documents. So they provide consent through the NorthStar document self-service platform. We track who provides consent, and then our software will know how to deliver the documents for each employee. Essentially the consent process is here. You have a, important tax return document available, must be the email subject that gets sent to the employee when they receive when their W-2 is available online. Our software does, handle all those IRS requirements, certainly. And then we get to March here. So February 28th is also a Saturday. So March 2nd would be when the IRS paper filing is due for the 1095-Cs and the 1099 miscellaneous dividend interest. Again, March 2nd would be for the 1095-Cs to be furnished to the employees. Again, going back to that last slide, you want to make your own interpretation on how you're planning to handle those documents. Again, check with your legal counsel on what they recommend. And then March 31st would be the electronic filing for the 1095-Cs and the 1099 miscellaneous dividend and interest. For any of our Canadian customers, the Canadian deadlines will be March 2nd. Again, February 28th is a Saturday. For those T4s, the T4As, the releve forms to be furnished to the employees and filed with the Canadian Revenue Agency. All right, so when we get into our 4 flexible options, that essentially this is what we have noticed. The majority of our customers fall into one of these 4 categories. Option 1, or the first option here, is going to be to go digital and hands-free. So what that means is you're going to be using our electronic online self-service platform to electronically deliver the documents to the employees and or vendors, and then we're going to print and mail the documents out for you for the ones that have not opted in or need a paper copy. As far as going digital and printing local, really the same as option 1, except for instead of MHC printing your forms for you, you would print them in-house. So you would use our software, print them to your local printers, stuff them or seal them, and then mail them out or internally deliver them to the employees. Going hands-free would mean you're completely outsourcing everything. You're not, doing any type of electronic delivery, but you just you're going to print everything and you're going to have us mail it out for you. And we're happy to do that. We'll talk more about all these options here in just a second. And then going hands-on would be, if you're in this bucket, certainly talk to us. We'd like to help you get to a more efficient process, but we do still have some customers who just print everything. And then, usually it's for our smaller, if your employee population is smaller, you may still be doing this. But, typically if you have a decent sized employee population, there's a better way to handle the creation of the documents and the distribution that's more efficient, time effective, and can save you some money there as well. All right, so just a quick poll. So hopefully everyone can respond to this quick poll. And really, it's about how are you planning to handle your 2025 documents for employees and vendors? And really, are you looking to digitally deliver and outsource the printing? Are you looking to digitally deliver and print in-house, outsource everything, print everything in-house, or you're not sure? So we'll give people a minute here to respond to the poll, and then we'll share the results. And usually I've done this webinar quite a few times, and usually it's a pretty mixed bag. Hopefully we have more people pushing for the digital delivery on the top here, and less printing in-house would be the goal. So we'll see. Which, Haley, I'm not sure what the results look like, but feel free to share the results when you feel like you've got most of the folks responding. So all right, we've got 67% are going with the digital delivery with the printing in-house. So that's a good percentage there. So and then we have the 10% would be digital with the outsourced delivery, and then 0 are outsourcing everything, and then 24% are printing everything in-house. So appreciate the feedback there. That's a good um, spread of responses. So let's get into each option here. So, the 10% of you would be looking at this option here, which would be the going digital and hands-free, where MHC will print the ones that need to be printed. And, it's great that you're offering the electronic delivery service to the employees. Hopefully you're able to get most of your employees opted in for that electronic delivery. And then for the remaining employees, MHC can certainly help you with the printing and mailing of those documents. And so, what is the end user experience? Employees and vendors, essentially will access our self-service portal, whether it is NorthStar document self-service, it might be document self-service on premise. In either case, they'll be able to access the online portal. There's a single sign-on option that we'll talk about, as well as an inactive employee access option, which we'll talk about. And then essentially MHC would be printing and mailing those documents out for you. And so with this option, really we're pushing for as much employee engagement as possible, and you're able to hopefully cut down on the printing that's needed and be able to get the majority of your customers electronically receiving those documents. And, the more that receive it electronically, the fewer you have to print, which is going to save you time, certainly. And also you guys with an outsourced printing option, you don't have to worry about the printers and the sealers and the postage, and we handle all that for you through our processing service. All right, so how does it work? Essentially the users will access, hopefully NorthStar document self-service from any device, log in. Usually we're going to integrate with your existing portal, employee portal, and there's a single sign-on option for that. So we'll hook up to your single sign-on authentication so that employees, assuming they're on your network, will just click a link and it'll bring them right into their documents. They can sign up for electronic delivery. They can view their historical documents, W-2s, 1095-Cs, pay stubs, whatever it may be, as far as the documents that are out there. And your administrators, the payroll staff, the benefits staff can see and manage the communications to the employees. There's a full audit trail of every employee. You can see who's opted in, who's not opted in, so how many you're going to need to print at the end of the year. And then there's, again, a full audit trail of all activity that happens within the system for the administrative staff. As far as the second part to this would be MHC's processing service. And this is where, we would essentially, let's take a scenario of the W-2s. So let's say you have 10,000 employees that are active employees, and let's say you have 7,000 of those employees sign up for the electronic delivery. You have 3,000 left to print. We have a tool that will kick out a file that just includes those 3,000 employees. You're going to send that file to MHC. We're going to print and mail those documents out for you after some, quality assurance and volume quantity testing with our processing group. And so if you're planning to use this option one where, you're going digital and hands-free, you should already have signed a statement of work with MHC. If you haven't, there's still a little bit of time left to get that done. Let us know if you're planning to use our processing service. We want to get that statement of work put together because we're planning, getting our volumes ordered as far as W-2 stock and 1095-C stock and 1099 stock. I'll provide some contact information here for who to reach out to, but that would be the kind of the top priority right now if you're planning to use our processing service to get that statement of work put together and executed. And we would want to do that here soon if you haven't done it already. And then the January, February timeframe, you're going to be providing us with your files. Our processing team will provide you with instructions on where you need to send those files, and then we'll download them. We can share some samples back, get some quality assurance checks on your documents, make sure we have the right number of documents that you're expecting us to print and mail out for you. And that's what happens here again in the January, February timeframe. We do the quality assurance check, and then we would be completing that service typically in the January, February timeframe. For 1095Cs, it might be a little bit later based on that deadline. Good. So for the digital first side of things, we have our end user experience. So those end users are going to be able to access the portal, or I should say the self-service website, usually through your employee portal. We're linking off of that with the single sign-on option, and they can see whatever documents are out there for them that your organization has signed up for. We'll talk about terminated employees as well and how those can be handled. But really, they can use a smartphone, a tablet, a computer. As long as they're on the network, they'll be able to use a single sign-on. Otherwise, there is an alternate authentication option as well for employees that are not on the network. And then as far as administrators go, administrators will be able to control the email communications, the web communications, and see how many documents are out there, who's signed up for electronic W-2s, who's not. You likely want to do some campaigning to get as many employees signed up as you can so that you have fewer to print at year end. And then this is just a few more document types. The tax documents are over here on the left. W-2s, 1095Cs, 1099s are the most popular. But we also have some other tax documents, which we'll talk about later, as well as any employee document like a pay stub, a employee specific retirement plan, a total comp statement, as you can see over here on the right. Those are all commonly delivered documents through the self-service portal that we provide. All right, so for those of you that falling into category one, how can you prepare now? Certainly be aware of the IRS dates covered previously. With all of our scenarios, we're going to want to pay attention to our year-end notifications coming from our ERP system. And, we always need to wait for the ERP year-end updates, and then we follow shortly thereafter. We're certainly planning and working with the ERP vendors for any changes that are coming. But, sometimes they'll make a last-minute change that we need to accommodate. And so that's why we always wait until they've provided their year-end updates before we finalize and release our year-end updates. For electronic delivery of the W-2s, 1095Cs, we've, heard some stories of, people that have really had a hard time getting employees to sign up. And one creative idea that I heard in the past is that they created a prize drawing or a raffle, for a pretty nice prize, and said anybody, who's already signed up or who signs up by this date, you're going to be in a drawing for, some type of a prize. And obviously with your size of your employee population, you can decide what type of prize you want to give away. But it was a successful campaign to get a lot of employees to sign up, and then they see how easy it is to receive their documents electronically. So that was one kind of creative idea that I heard a customer did and was a successful one. So something you might want to keep in mind. And then be aware of key communications for your year-end updates. We'll talk more about the year-end updates from MHC, whether you're an on-premise classic customer, whether you're a NorthStar customer. We're going to talk more about those updates and what to expect there here in just a minute. And then Down below here, you'll see David Bolt is our tax processing coordinator. So reach out to him if you're interested in using our processing service. He's managing this process again this year, same resources last year and previous years as well. But he can help with the statement of work. He can help with pricing. He's going to need to know what document types, what volumes, and then he'll be able to provide pricing and a statement of work so that you can get locked into our processing service. All right, so that was option one as far as going digital and having MHC print for you. Option two is going digital as well, where we're doing the electronic self-service delivery, but also you're printing locally. So you might be using NorthStar, you might be using Document Express, you might be using our single tenant cloud to print locally in addition to the electronic delivery. So let's talk about how that would differ. For this particular scenario, really what's going to be different is this, the in-house printing and distribution. So instead of MHC printing for you, you're going to need, a printer, you're going to need to order your tax forms, you're going to need a sealer if you're using a, pressure seal stock, or envelopes if you're going to be stuffing into envelopes those documents. So those are some things we're going to talk about how you can prepare for those items here in just a second. But again, we're going to have that online self-service component that we talked about previously, which could be handled through NorthStar Document Self-Service or the MHC Cloud or on-premise through Document Self-Service. And let's talk about what you can be doing now, or really how the process works for this one. So you're going to want to certainly determine your print count, how many documents are we expecting to need to print, and then ordering your tax forms. So similar to getting that statement of work signed for a processing customer, you're going to want to order your tax forms so that you're prepared to print those documents when the time comes. I'm going to share some contact information on the next slide or coming up here on our two authorized forms providers, and you can certainly reach out to them. I'll talk more about that here in just a second. And if you're going to be using our software on premise, you want to log into our customer portal, make sure you know the credentials, make sure you can get in, because when those year-end updates are available, you're going to want to be able to get out there, download them, and not have to try to figure out how to log into the customer portal. If you're a NorthStar customer or a MHC single tenant cloud customer, we will handle those updates for you. So that's one of the benefits of being a cloud customer, is that we handle the year-end updates for you. There is still some configuration that you'll need to participate in, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. But you don't have to log into the customer portal and download the updates unless you're using our software on premise. So here is that, December, February timeframe, logging into the portal, make sure that you can get in there. And there are some, you'll see some communications in there as well, as far as we'll provide instructions on how to download the software. And we'll talk about how you're going to be notified by MHC here in just a minute for these different scenarios as well. And then December, February, you're going to want to install those updates. Usually it's an IT person that's going to log in, download. Depending on how you have Document Express configured, you might need to load it on a desktop, you might need to load it on a server, and usually the IT folks will handle and help you guys with that. And then for the MHC Cloud customers, again, we'll handle that for you. Regardless of what option you have, you're going to be running your year-end updates in your ERP. You're going to be creating data files. Our software is going to ingest those data files, and then we will deliver the document through the software, whether it's an electronic delivery, a print delivery, etc. When we talk about the digital and print capabilities, our software prints the form and the data at the same time, so you're not having to try and hit data to a box on a pre-printed form. So once you get things set up and tested, there shouldn't be much stress needed. It's more of a process of getting the software updated, tested, configured, and so you're ready to process according to what category you fall into here. So similar topics as far as what you can be doing to prepare. Certainly the IRS dates are important. pay attention to your ERP year-end updates. Again, with the electronic delivery, try to come up with a creative way to get as many employees opted in as possible. Cut down on the printing. Your tax forms, we'll talk about that on the next slide. So you're going to need to order those. You should be working on that right now to get those forms ordered so that you're ready to go here in the next month or so. Each one of our customers has what are called tax software contacts. And so if you're not sure, if you should be getting notified when for example, if you're a Document Express customer that's wants to be notified when your W-2 updates are available, and you're not sure if you're going to get that email, you can email this MHC Communications at mhcautomation.com. Let them know what document type you're responsible for, W-2s, 1095Cs, 1099s. They'll make sure you're going to get that email when the year-end updates are available. Again, for the cloud customers, you don't need to worry about that. MHC is going to handle those year-end updates for you. If you need help getting onto the customer portal, you can email tech support at mhcautomation.com or call this phone number here as well. All right, as far as the forms providers go, same as last year, Brand Advantage Group and Quality Resource Group. They both are familiar with MHC. They're going to be familiar with our software. They're going to make sure you order the right forms for the software. So you don't absolutely have to order forms from these organizations, but we recommend it just because we know they're going to provide you with the correct forms for the software. If you do have a local provider that you want to use, you just want to check some different form numbers, make sure that you're ordering the correct forms for the software. All right, so if you're a Document Express customer, really nothing has changed much as far as what your experience would look like. Last year we introduced the new customer portal, so everyone should be familiar with that. There's a tax center that when you log into the customer portal, you'll click on the tax center. That's going to be have the instructions for installing the year-end updates. We'll talk about the dates for these updates being released here in just a second. If you ever need help, you can always email tech support at mhcautomation.com. That's the recommended way to contact support, because that creates a ticket in our system, and then someone gets assigned automatically, and then they will reach out to you to schedule a call or help you out via email if there's just a simple question needed. So really nothing materially different from a Document Express perspective. If you have done that in the past, again, we're here if you need help. Certainly, just let us know. From a MHC NorthStar perspective, and so as the years have gone by, we've had more and more customers signing up or essentially using MHC NorthStar for the year-end updates, and so we've got a few things to point out here. What's different about MHC NorthStar? They're what are called in-app messages or announcements, and so instead of having to go to the customer portal and download your updates, MHC will be updating our MHC NorthStar customers for them, so you don't need to worry about that. When you log in, there'll be an announcement or a message that says, either your year-end updates are scheduled to be available on, let's say, December 15th, or you maybe log in December 15th and it says your year-end updates are available. So those in-app messages will guide you there, and then there'll be in-app guides to help you configure the software for your 2025 tax projects. So again, if you need help, you can always contact support. There is a separate email here, NorthStar support at mhcautomation.com. Feel free to use that. If you're not able to get things set up and tested on your own, certainly let us know. We're happy to help, and that's why we're here. All right, so we're going to do one more poll question here. Make sure everyone's still paying attention, and we'll see what type of response we get. But essentially, this one you can choose more than one. But what were some of the challenges that your organization faced last year with your tax document delivery? Getting employees to opt in electronic delivery, dealing with all the paper, printing, postage, making sure you were IRS compliant, managing inactive employees and their access, or something else. If it was something else that you want to share, it'd be great if you could type it into the chat or into the Q&A panel, and be interested in hearing what folks have to say about that. We'll give people another 10 seconds or so, and then Haley, if you want to share the results, that'd be great. All right, this one's all across the board here. So the making sure we remain IRS compliant. Yeah, that's something that people, obviously that's important and something that people worry about all the time. So that's obviously good. Let's see, dealing with all the paper, 31%, managing inactive employees, 31%. So pretty wide range. They all got responses. And for anybody that said other, if you want to share what the other is in the chat, that'd be great. Take a look at that in just a minute. All right, so option 3 would be going hands-free. So this option is pretty straightforward. You're applying your year-end updates from your ERP, and you're sending MHC your file, whether it's a 1099 file, whether it's a W-2 file, 1095Cs. Again, we need to have that statement of work put together and signed here before, usually we want that signed in December at the latest. The sooner the better, so that our team can prepare. Then in January, February, you're sharing your file with us. We have a secure transfer portal for those files. We will, preview the output, make sure, check totals, say we have, 5,221 W-2s. Does that match your totals? We'll provide some samples, make sure that everything's lining up with what you're expecting. Everything looks good. And then we will provide the print service once you guys give us the green light to get started. And everything looks good. We'll print and mail those documents out on your behalf. So that's obviously the hands-free option is it's something that a lot of people really like, because you don't have to deal with having printers. You don't have to deal with having software on premise for the Document Express customers. You don't have to deal with ordering forms and stuffing documents into envelopes and worrying about postage and getting things to the post office. We can handle all of that for you through this option. If you're taking advantage of this option, again, we want to make sure we have that statement of work taken care of. We have our processing person, David Bolt, who will be your main point of contact throughout the process. Sign that statement of work, be aware of the IRS deadlines. You certainly apply those year-end updates from your ERP, and then we would be, submitting, you would be submitting the file to us, and then essentially sit back and relax, and we'll take care of the rest. All right, last option here would be going hands-on, and this would be if you're printing only, but you're printing in-house. And so again, a lot of the same themes here, being aware of those IRS deadlines, paying attention to your ERP updates, ordering your tax forms. You're going to need those tax forms for the in-house printing. If you're not sure who your tax contact is at your organization, you can email this MHC Communications at mhcautomation.com. We can let you know. And then the customer portal, if you're not sure if you need help accessing that, let us know. Again, you're going to want to determine how many documents you're expecting to need to print. You're ordering your tax forms, logging into the customer portal. If you're a non-premise MHC Classic customer, if you are a cloud customer, you don't have to worry about that. And then we'll talk about this date here. So December 15th is typically when our year-end updates are available. I'll talk more about that here in just a minute. And you'll be downloading the year-end updates like you have in previous years. Unless you're a cloud customer, whether it's NorthStar or the single tenant cloud, we will be handling those updates for you. One thing I should call out, if we do have any single tenant cloud customers on the line here, essentially, if you're a single tenant customer or a MHC Classic customer, you're going to get an email letting you know when those year-end updates are available. And then if you're a NorthStar customer, again, you're going to log in, and those in-app notifications, messages will, provide you with the status of where things are at there. So we talk a lot about 1099s, W-2s, 1095Cs, but as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here, we also do a lot of other different types of tax documents. There's a lot of different documents out there. If you don't see something that you need to do, let us know. There's more than what you see on the screen here. And we have done lots and lots of these different forms. So let us know if you have any unique requirements or any tax forms you're interested in leveraging our software or a print service to handle for you. All right. So as far as support for reissued and corrected tax documents, a lot of times there are questions around this. So this is kind of a frequently asked question. People get ask about when do I reissue versus provide a corrected tax document. And essentially a reissued tax document is used if an employee loses his or her W-2 or the employee address is incorrect. We reissue a W-2 to that employee. For corrected tax documents, correction is made, tax document. If a correction needs to be made to the tax document before the electronic file is transferred, the forms must be denoted as corrected. If a correction needs to be made to the tax document after the electronic, after is the key word here, is transferred, depending on the tax module, the form must be denoted as corrected and a special correction form may be used. So again, if you're not sure how to handle something, let us know. We're happy to help you with any of those questions. All right. So as far as the year-end timelines, this is kind of a nice slide that'll give you everything on one timeline. So between September 1st up until the end of this month, customers again should be signing and returning those statements of work for the tax processing. If you're looking to use our software for any of these services like W-2s, electronic W-2s, etc., if you don't already have that license, we would want to get that taken care of as soon as possible, ideally before the end of the month, so that our team is ready to and available, has time to get you set up and the software configured and whatnot. And then again, for the local folks that are printing locally, you should be purchasing those tax documents from one of our two authorized providers. So typically the first 2 weeks of December is when those ERP updates come out. So whether you're Infor, Oracle, Workday, whatever it may be, usually those year-end updates come out those first 2 weeks of December. And then December 15th, which would be the third week of December, is when our year-end updates are scheduled to be available. And so what that means is if you're an MHC Classic customer, you should be receiving an email typically on December 15th. Sometimes it's sooner, but usually it's that third week of December. And if you're an MHC NorthStar customer, you should log into NorthStar and you'll have those in-app messages that will guide you through what you need to do. If you are an MHC single tenant customer, you will get an email as well when those year-end updates are available and have been applied to your testing tenant first and then your prod tenant second. All right, for January 22nd is when so there's a rush fee if you don't provide us with your file for us to print. We need 7 business days to avoid that rush fee. We'll talk about that more in just a second. February 2nd, which would be the Monday, is the deadline for the W-2 to be furnished to the employees. 1099s must be furnished to payees. IRS electronic and paper filing for W-2s, 1099 NECs. March 2nd would be the deadline for the Canadian tax documents as well as the Canadian filing. Paper filing for the 1095Cs and the 1099 miscellaneous dividend interest. March 3rd, 1095C furnished to the employees. March 31st would be the IRS filing for the 1095Cs and the 1099 miscellaneous dividend interest. So I like how the Canadians do it with just one date. Everything's due on one date. So we in the US here obviously spread things out with different dates and a lot more dates to worry about, but they're all here on the slides. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, a few frequently asked questions that we typically get asked. One of them is I already saw it in the chat earlier. Is this being recorded and will it be shared? Yes, it is being recorded and it will be shared. So everyone will get an email providing you with a link to the recording when it's available. It usually takes a few days for that to become available, but you will all receive a copy of this presentation. Let's see, do we still need to buy tax forms ourselves if we use MHC's processing service? No, you do not. We provide that as part of the service, so you do not need to worry about that. If we use MHC document processing service, when do we need to provide the files? So this is what I was referring to earlier. So it depends on the deadline. So for W-2s, 1099s, the deadline is January 31st. So we need the file 7 business days prior, which would be January 22nd. If you're going to use MHC to print your 1095Cs, go to that deadline. 7 business days back from that would be the deadline. And we always end up having, many years have some last minute ones that we have to do. We're happy to do it, but there's a rush fee that's would be incurred as part of that. All right, can we utilize MHC document processing service for our terminated employees and still leverage NorthStar document self-service for all our active employees and those on leave? Yeah, so part of the MHC NorthStar document self-service platform is there is an alternate authentication called MHC KBA. We do have that for our document self-service classic product as well, but it was an additional SKU that you had to purchase. It's just part of the NorthStar platform if you're a document self-service NorthStar customer. So that's just part of it. And what MHC KBA is, it's an alternate authentications for inactive employees. So you have someone who's, maybe no longer active, they don't have access to your network resources, but they call payroll, they want their last 4 years of W-2s. Historically payroll would have to print and mail those out. Now you can send them to the website. They go through a registration process. They have to answer some security questions, which we work with you on what those security questions are. Assuming they can successfully log in and create a profile, then they can get in and view those documents. And that's called MHC KBA. If an employee asks for a reprint, how do I handle those? And so it really depends on which option you're using for the delivery. So if you're using our NorthStar document self-service for electronic delivery, so really that option 1 and 2 that we talked about, employees can go and handle their reprints on their own. Even if they're not signed up for an electronic W-2 initially, you can send them to the website to handle the reprint on their own. If you're an in-house print customer, you guys would need to print and provide the reprint for the employee. If you're using our processing service and that's the only option you have, we do have an option where we can provide a flash drive with PDF copies so you can handle those reprints without having to contact MHC. Let's see, the inactive employee handling their own reprints. I think we already covered that. Just some handy links and guides. Obviously everyone knows how to get to the IRS website, and it's a good place to go if you're interested in seeing anything that's new or interested in looking at any of the different form requirements and what the forms look like for this year. MHC will handle any of those form updates for you every year, so you don't necessarily need to worry about it unless you're curious about something that might be new on a form. All right, let's see how we're doing on time here. Looks like we're just past what we allowed, so I must have gotten a little long-winded, but let me look at the Q&A real quick. Let's see. There's a question about single sign-on. What options are available? Chris, I know there are, we support the common ones. I'll have our team send you an email with the different options. I don't want to misspeak about what options are available, so we'll take that as a takeaway. Let's see, what are the differences between on-premise DSS and NorthStar other than NorthStar runs in the cloud and MHC managed? So the document self-service on-premise requires you to install it on a server. It requires a database. It requires Document Express, which also requires a database. NorthStar runs in our multi-tenant cloud, which MHC manages, supports everything for you. And so it's really cloud versus on-premise and the maintenance and management that comes along with on-premise versus cloud. Let's see. One issue we have, year after year is determining what W-2s we should be printing. The only print W-2s for employees who have not opted in, as well as terminated employees. We'd like to know the number of documents we need. Cecilia, we'll follow up with you on that and just want to have a support resource, kind of look at your current setup. I'm not sure if you're, on-premise NorthStar, what your current setup is, but we will have a support resource follow up with you and see, it sounds like you're looking to try and figure out how many documents you need to print each year and probably for ordering forms and whatnot. So we will follow up with you on that. Password resets for inactive employees. So if you're using the MHC KBA, there is the inactive employees can reset their passwords on their own. Really what happens is they click a link that says, I forgot my password, and they have to go through the security questions that are set up. They have to answer those successfully, and then they can reset their password. Can MHC send the electronic file to the IRS for our organization? So that's a frequently asked question as well, Sally. And the answer is no, we do not handle the electronic filing for the IRS. We handle everything around the document generation and distribution, but we do not handle the electronic filing. And the reason for that is the majority of the ERPs that we work with handle that for you. And so you just, create that file out of the ERP, and then you can send it to the IRS. Let's see. If we have previous year's tax documents from another source, can they be imported into NorthStar? And that's a good question. Well, there is a transition from MHC on-premise for tax documents to NorthStar. And so we certainly can do that. If we talk about another source or another system, we would need to look into that, Chris. So we'll follow up with you on that one as well, because it depends on the source that they're coming from. What are the largest number of tax documents do you handle for a year? How many could NorthStar handle? That's a good question. We can certainly follow up with you on that as well. We do have some very large customers that are going to be using our NorthStar platform this upcoming year, and I know there's a ton of testing that's been involved from our product team, and Chris will follow up with you on that one as well. Have the 1099 forms changed this year, or is the form the same as last year? And Jackie, I don't know that if there might be a small modification here and there potentially for the 1099s, but if there are, our software will handle it for you. There weren't any new like NEC forms or any new forms that came out this year that we're aware of. So hopefully that answers your question there. So that got through everything, Haley. That was all the questions, and we've got some follow-ups that we will be providing, and we do have everyone's contact information, so we will do that. But Haley, I think that is all if you want to wrap us up.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Kyle. That was a great presentation. And yeah, thanks everyone for attending. That wraps up, and you'll be receiving an email with the link to the recorded webinar, so you can look out for that if you want to revisit the content. And don't forget to please fill out the post-webinar survey so we can continue to improve and keep providing valuable webinars. Thank you and have a great day, everybody.